Welcome. Welcome to the Times Cheltenham Science Festival and to the international final of Famelab. Welcome to all of you, our public audience here in the EDF Energy Arena, and of course to all of those people who are watching all over the world online. My name's Louise Emerson, and I'm the CEO of Cheltenham Festivals. And Cheltenham Festivals is all about inspiring people of all ages to enjoy great music, the spoken word, the written word, and of course, science. And this week is all about science. And Famelab is all about great science communication to a public audience. And tonight, you get your chance to place your vote. Just see it as a dry run for June 23rd for all of you from the UK. Now, all the participants you see tonight and all the participants in Famelab are supported by a brilliant bunch of trainers, and I would just like to thank them in person. I'm going to actually read their names out. They're such a great bunch, and we couldn't do it without them. So I'd like to thank Malcolm Love, Emily Grossman, Tamandra Harkness, Quentin Cooper, Dallas Campbell, Frank Burnett, Nick Harrigan, Carl Byrne, James Piercy, and Jonathan Sanderson. Thank you so much for all of your help. Famelab was born in Cheltenham Science Festival, but it now reaches 27 countries across the globe. And we could not do that without our partners. And I want to say special thanks to the British Council. The British Council offices across the world who bring us that reach. And particular thanks to British Council in London and British Council in Washington, DC. And there's another partner who helps us extend our reach right across the US, an agency that is excellent in public engagement and knows a little bit about space. And that is, of course, NASA. Thank you very much. There are countless companies, trusts and foundations, organisations that make Famelab happen. And here in the UK, I'd like to thank our major partner, EDF Energy. Now, in Famelab, if you go over 3 minutes, you get the horn. I don't want that to happen to me, so I'm going to introduce Quentin Cooper.
So thank you very much, Louise. I've been thanked twice already and I haven't done anything yet. So I'm Quentin Cooper, tweeting as @QWERTY, blood group AB rhesus positive, which I really hope won't be relevant over the course of this afternoon and this evening. So welcome to everybody here and welcome to everybody watching the live stream all around the world, if you can see us through the fog here as well. And this is the grandest ever grand final of Famelab International. 12 different nations taking part. And yesterday, we had 3 tremi-finals 3, with 27 different nations taking part. That is more than in Euro 2016. And for the hardcore science fans here, Euro 2016 is a football tournament, okay? Now I've stood here, or sometimes here, and watched as Famelab has grown and grown and grown. And we've evolved even in the UK, a version for secondary schools, which is called Famelab Academy, sponsored by EDF Energy. And I think this year's winner, and I was the host for this as well, this is Sabrina Torres is somewhere among us. Sabrina, can we get the lights up if you're here and get you to stand up and then perversely take a bow? Sabrina Torres. Don't sit down till you're told, just at school. Now, I'm also told that Sabrina had a mindset on being a lawyer until she took part in Famelab, but now she's thinking the way ahead is science, and you've got a place on a STEM course at Southampton University in the summer. Is that correct? Brilliant result. We've made progress. Sabrina, thank you. So that is how things are progressing in the UK, but that ain't the half of it. That isn't even the 1/27th of it. Famelab may have started here at Cheltenham Science Festival, but as we already heard from Louise, with big help from the British Council, from NASA, from others, We've spread right across the planet. NASA and CERN have run their own versions. Many other organizations across science and beyond have copied it and basically changed the name and done the same thing. Not that we're bitter, but we just like to mention it every mind. We're watching you. And this year we've got finalists from dozens of countries across every continent apart from Antarctica. And we are still working on Antarctica. If anyone in the audience has access to a South Pole research facility or supervillain headquarters and can also provide transport, please contact me after tonight's event. As I say, my Twitter handle is @QWERTY. The only downside, and it's mostly an downside, is that there are now so many nations taking part, each with a trip to the international finals as part of the prize, that you just cannot have one event that has them all in. That's why yesterday we had a quite metaphorically mind-blowing, quite literally knackering 7 hours of 3 back-to-back semi-finals. And we had some phenomenal stuff in that. We recreated surgery by robot. We found rhymes and reasons why songs keep going around in your head. We explained our expanding universe. We had the saga of a single cell, and we had DNA meets S&M as a dominatrix instructed us on 50 shades of epigenetics, complete with leather and chains. And those are just some of the ones that didn't make the final. Bet you're wishing you were there now. So just a minute, can I just again house lights? Who was there? Who was there yesterday? Excellent. Don't put your hand up if you're one of the finalists, obviously. We can kind of tell that. Who was there for all three? Oh, you hardy souls. We are kindred spirits. Well done as well. Now, obviously, anyone of this complete first-timer here who's wandered into this and doesn't really know what the heck this is all about? I'm sorry about alarming you with the mention of the dominatrix early on. Okay. It is really a very straightforward event. As long as you've got you can have the lights down now, that's fine. I've done messing with the audience. As long as you've got a basic understanding of non-communicative algebraic geometry and you're reasonably up to date with the properties of Moscovium and, of course, the data coming from the LISA Pathfinder mission, you should find it all very straightforward to follow. In essence, we have 12 finalists. They each have 3 minutes to get across something of the relevance and resonance of science, the wow and the how, the magnificence and the significance, after which they will be grilled lightly and in some cases scarred badly by our quartet of judges. No technology like PowerPoint is allowed, and only props you can lug on yourselves. Everyone you're about to see has come through heats, national finals, and yesterday's semi-finals to earn their place on this stage tonight. What's more, they have to do a different Famelab presentation today to the one they did yesterday, and most of them are working in a second or third language. That is by complete way of contrast with our judges. They have not earned their place on this stage tonight at all. Their great achievement is not having anything in their diary at 8:30 on a Thursday evening and being somewhere in the general vicinity of Cheltenham. And that's good enough for us. So please welcome, first of all, our chair, TV presenter and journalist, mostly about cars, especially electric ones, actor, and the man for over 20 years who's given us the most famous fake Canadian accent in television history, Crichton in Red Dwarf. Applause, please, for the admirable Robert Llewellyn.
Thank you. Indeed.
Second, described by The Independent as the brains behind everything to do with biodiversity. What? Everything? She's the Director of Science at the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, presenter of Radio 4's epic series Plants from Roots to Riches, and Professor of Biodiversity at Oxford. She is Professor Cathy Willis.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
Third judge, because we've got 4 this year, everything's gone up by 33%, has taught science journalism and online journalism in Egypt, had a long career there as a freelance science writer and editor before moving to the UK. She describes herself as a skeptic of everything I've learned to date, which I hope doesn't include the session on how to be a Famelab judge. Please welcome Nadia El-Awadi. And finally, it is a particular delight that we're rejoined by the former co-director of Cheltenham Science Festival, who then frittered away some years becoming Professor of Biomedical Imaging at Imperial College London, but is now back with us as the new chair of the Science Festival, Mark Lithgow. So, Robert, and I need to stress really clearly that this is not something I knew, this is something I looked up. But there's an episode of Red Dwarf where Crichton introduces the crew to a simulant saying, this is the... I won't try the voice. This is the Inquisitor. He prunes away the wastrels, expunges the wretched, and deletes the worthless. Is that more or less your approach to being a Famelab judge?
It's exactly. I will become the Inquisitor.
Right, okay,
Yes,
okay.
that's exactly.
We got a bit of bonus accent there as well. That was good. That's a little treat as well. And Mark, you've been away from us for a while, but you kind of had a reputation as being a bit of an intermittent Inquisitor. Have the years mellowed you?
I think I'm entering into that sort of grumpy old man stage. So it's quite like, and because I've been embedded with science, I'm going to question, and I really want to tease out whether the person is going to know their science or whether they're just a muppet up there reciting something they've learned.
Great. So no, the years haven't mellowed
No.
you at all. That's the long story. And Nadia, particularly for the benefit of those who are newer, can you just say what the key judging criteria are you'll be looking at?
Right. We'll be looking for content, and we want to make sure you know your science. We're looking for clarity. We want to make sure that you explain it well and that anybody can understand it. And we're looking for charisma. We want to see really strong personalities that bring us in, that drag us into the science and make us really interested in it.
Yeah, that's why Mark's here as a contrast as well, in case you need a basic reference point as well. And Kathy, unlike the judges, as I say, these Famelabers, they've all had to earn their place here. They're all national champions. So how do you pick a champion from among champions? What's the extra thing you'll be looking for?
I think it's passion and really, really enjoying that subject and being able to convey that across to everybody in the audience and to the judges.
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. It's a really tough job, and although I slightly mock them, can we please kind of preemptively thank our judges, because it is a really tough call you've got to do tonight. I should also say as a treat, when we get to the bit where the judges do their deliberating, or in Mark's case, his accidentalising, we will be entertained, enlightened, and quite possibly exploded by the BBC One show's science spokesman, come stuntman, come spectacle maker, Marty Jopson. Oh, and in case you're wondering what everyone's actually competing for, well, mostly it's the singular honour of being declared International Famelab Champion 2016, or possibly Famelab International Champion 2016. We honestly use both, and we've never really made our minds up about that. But as well as that, they also get a plaque, and the winner will also get a GoPro Hero black rugged camera with additional rear screen attachment. I love that detail. To help them continue in their science communication activities, the runners-up will get an armful of books. That is the official technical term, an armful of books. And there's also one more prize, which is another armful of books, plus a plaque that you get to decide on, and this has been mentioned by Louise as well. This is our audience trophy. Now, I'll explain how you vote later, but if you haven't done so already, can you at some point try and get your internet-enabled device to hook up to the Times Cheltenham Festival network, because that will prove useful later. Okay, let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the talent. The order has been randomly determined by a high-tech system that we trust here, which is called putting names into a hat. First up, and first alphabetically, and also furthest flung of all Famelabbers, it is Australia, and their winner, Erin Fagan Jeffries. And a big hello to anyone watching the live stream in Adelaide, whereas I think the time is coming up to 5:30 in the morning. You are mad. Right, okay. Now, as a child, Erin used to sort clothes pegs by colour on the washing line. She says it's one reason that she grew up to be a taxonomist. I did ask her what the other reasons were, but she said it's classified. I'm very proud of that gag. Now, Erin spent a while in an Aussie science circus, but she's now back in the lab at Adelaide University, pursuing an interest in insects and trying to answer the conundrum, what's the point of wasps? Swarm applause, please, as you're stung into action by our first Famelab finalist, Erin Fagan Jeffries.
Switch on your imaginations for me. What is a scientist doing with a fishing pole in the middle of the Australian desert? Keep thinking on that. We'll get back to it in a minute. I would like to tell you a story. I'm a taxonomist, and what I do is describe and name new species. And as taxonomists, we've only named about 15% of the life on Earth, which means we discover new species every single day. But how often do you think we discover not just one new species, but a whole new environment, a whole new world we didn't know was there? Not often is the answer. I mean, it would be like us stumbling across a rainforest as rich and diverse as the Amazon that no one had ever heard of before. Unlikely, right? But this is a story of just such a discovery. A place discovered in my lifetime I've had the privilege to be involved in researching. Back to the scientist in the desert. She's in the middle of Western Australia, so it's really hot. Trees and shrubs dot the red dirt landscape, and there's not a drop of water as far as the eye can see. Bushflies swarm around her face as she walks up to a PVC pipe sticking about a foot above the ground. This pipe is an exploration bore drilled by a mining company to go deep beneath the ground. The scientist puts the net into the pipe and reels out several metres of string before finally hearing a faint splash. There's water hidden under the ground. And if I could take you down there, you would suddenly find your eyes useless. It's pitch black. There's no need for eyes when there's no light to see by. So the animals that are down here have evolved to have no eyes. Quiet, scuttling noises in the rock hint at spiders and scorpions through the cracks and crevices, while actually in the water, ground beetles that dive in the water and minuscule crustaceans like amphipods and isopods, they look like tiny little prawns, swim and feed on suspended nutrients in this groundwater. The animals in here are mostly white, but there's no need for skin pigment to protect your organs from the harsh sun rays when you're deep beneath the ground. And their appendages like legs and feelers are elongated, the better to sense a world you cannot see. This is a whole new world down here, teeming with literally thousands of new species unknown to science. And we think it's a relic of when this desert was a wet and humid rainforest. As the continent dried, the animals were forced under the ground to take refuge in one of the few sources of water left and to evolve in the dark. When we look back in this world and when we look for animals like the scientist with the net, we're literally fishing into the past and looking and describing and finding new species to conserve into the future.
So thank you. So as a biodiversity specialist myself, I've got a question I'd really like to ask you, and that is, and it's a question that's thrown at me many times, why should we conserve these things below ground?
Yeah, I think that's a question that can be answered in sort of two completely different ways. One is, do we dominate this planet or do we share it? And do we have a moral obligation to conserve and to protect the other life that's here? The other is simply that we actually don't know what these animals are doing as far as an ecosystem service in the groundwater. So they're eating suspended nutrients in the water. If we were to get rid of them all, which is a threat in the area because of mining, it's possible that the quality of the groundwater would really decrease, which would impact the use of it for agriculture and for people to drink.
Thank you.
I have a question. How did they know to look down there?
Sorry, say that again.
How did they know to look down there?
Oh, well, that's it's a really cool question because in Australia, people didn't think there was much chance of there being life beneath the ground. There's lots in Europe and in America, but it was thought Australia had the wrong geology. And it wasn't until a couple of decades ago that they actually started drilling bores for mining, and we started sampling and realised there's this amazing new world that we've just discovered, which is really cool.
So it's just really briefly, Erin. I love the story. I think I was really captivated by it. And as it went on, I was just imagining this amazingly, well, not colourful, but white world down there that you described. But how much? Is it absolutely littered with life down there? Or are these things quite sporadic? And, you wait for like 3 weeks and then you get a tiny little thing that you pop up and then you make this lovely story out of. I can't get my head around that side of things.
No, lots and lots of life. So when we put the net down the borehole and we pull it up so the water seeps out of the net and we catch the animals in the little tube at the bottom and we'll get heaps and heaps in there. So, yeah,
and what's the
there's
biggest
so
thing?
much life.
What's the biggest thing you're going to get? Okay, that big. That big, okay.
Okay, we've discovered a new species of science communicator. Can we please thank Erin Fagan Jeffries? Second up is Spain, and our Spaniard in the works is Alba Aguillon. Alba has a background in marine biology and ecology and works in the UK as an education and outreach officer. There are 2 things that she loves above all others to actually do the outreach about. One is polar regions, where she's done quite a bit of research, and the other is ants, which she admires above all other creatures. Odd combination, as you get ants all over the planet, except in polar regions. When Alba won the Spanish final in Madrid, she received her award from the Queen of Spain, the actual Queen of Spain. Queen Letizia has now been along to several Famelabs and apparently likes it almost as much as Alba likes ants. Should Alba also win tonight, her prize will be presented by Bob Fenton from our sponsors EDF. He is the closest thing to royalty we've got. Now, we're as much anarchists as monarchists at Famelab, so it's up to you whether you bow, curtsy, or just clap wildly for our by royal approval Spanish champion, Alba Aguillon.
Tonight, I want to talk about a story from the south of Europe, one from the ancient Greece, that has been passed on from generation to generation. Some of you might know it. It talks about a cicada, a very popular insect in the Mediterranean, that spends the whole summer singing and enjoying the sun. While the cicada is having fun, a hard-working ant is storing food for the cold winter. When the season finally comes, the cicada has nothing to eat, so begs the ant for food. This story has been told for hundreds of years all over the world to teach about the power of hard work and planning ahead. However, in biology, nothing is as it seems. Cicadas are one of the insects that can live the longest. Some species live 17 years, and what is even more amazing is that they will only mature and become adults in the last 6 weeks of their lives. Like Mike, my ex-boyfriend. Cicadas live all the time under the ground, by themselves, and they have to use their front legs to dig galleries to be able to reach the roots of the plants and eat. When they become adults, their lives are not any easier. For the first time, they're going to emerge from the soil, see the sun, and they're going to get really excited. So they're going to start singing very loud, just like Northern Europeans coming to Spain. And cicadas, they like challenge. Males sing to attract the females using their belly. And sometimes, because of the vibrations in their body, they explode. And being a female is not an easy task either. They are aware of sounds 24/7. And when they hear a sound, they go like crazy, either to a car, a bus, or a sexy male. So I came here tonight to International Famelab as a biologist, and with all my respect to the Greeks, I want to suggest a change for the moral of this story. Don't treat anyone only based on what you see, because we all are, including the cicadas, living life and just trying to make the most of our opportunities. Thank you.
I just like to. I thought that was wonderful. The exploding cicadas. I've spent a lot of time in Australia. I was attacked by cicadas once when I was camping. They flew out of the tree towards the light, and they're quite big, and they hit me, and it hurt.
Yeah, well,
but I didn't know they could explode. That is amazing. I didn't know.
Yeah, the males can, because they have their abdomen. You say abdomen?
Abdomen, yeah.
Is hollow on the inside, and they have different membranes. So when they make the sound, because of the different pressure between inside their body and outside their body, sometimes
if they do it too much, they
explode and they die, of course.
I quite like that.
Only the males.
Only the males.
Not the female.
That's really interesting. Are you talking about one species of cicada or several? I mean, so I'm quite interested about this sound. Do different species make different sounds, and does this vary?
Yeah, so there's like around 1,300 species, and they all, not all, but most of them make different sounds, and even the same species can make different sounds for different things. So even the same cicada can make different sounds depending on the situation. So as an alarm or to attract females, they can use different types of sounds.
And can you differentiate between the species? I mean, can we, using acoustic engineering, be able to determine different species?
It can be done. It can be done. I can't. But people who has a lot of experience. My field of work is ants. It's not really cicadas. I have worked with some cicadas before, but I cannot difference the species. But some people can. When you get a lot of experience, some people can. Just like the birds. With the birds, you can.
So my obvious question, leading on from that, if I can, is why did you move from ants to cicadas?
You mean in my talk?
You mainly work on ants.
Well, I talk about ants in my semi-final.
Right.
So I decided. So now I thought about the fable, that is also the ant appears. So I thought I'm going to talk about the other part as well, But my favorite animal they are ants. I love ants.
Albert, I loved it. It was a captivating story, and it was a wonderful start. I've heard the cicada and the 17 years, the prime numbers before. It's two halves. It's an easy one and a tricky one. What are the cues for the 17 years? Why 17 years, and what switches them on? And secondly, they didn't just arrive with that prime number cycle. They evolved to have that prime number cycle. And how long has it taken them to evolve to have that prime number cycle?
Well,
if you can try and answer in under half an hour, that would be good. Yeah.
There's two groups of cicadas. Not all of them. Some of them appear every year. Yeah. Some of them appear in prime years, and they do it to avoid predators. So the ones that appear every 17 years, the predators, they usually appear every 5 years. So because they appear each 17, they only see them once every 85 years. So it's a mechanism to avoid predators.
Brilliant. She's shown her ardour for cicadas. Now make some noise for our Spanish champion, Alga Aguillon. She's Spanish, that's where she vanishes, but will she be back later? Only time will tell. Now, Albert told a story from the Greek myths, and next we come to our non-mythical Greek winner, Leandros Lamnis. He's a medical student, he says, but not a devoted one. That means in the past he spent a lot of time being what he calls a nerd anti-hero, playing internet poker and painting the town red. Literally, he did a lot of illegal graffiti. These days, Leandros still manages a lot of activities beyond medicine, things like the European Youth Parliament, the Model United Nations, and most recently, setting up a start-up to counteract Greek bureaucracy, although there's a lot of red tape to get through before he can get it properly running. In the highest qualifications box on the Famelab entry form, where most people put their degree down, Leandros just put persistence, and it served him well. He may not be a devoted medic, but he's persistently good, and he's persisted until he's made the international final. Here to argue why true love surpasses science, our Greek champion, Leandros Lemnis.
What do you mean you're dumping me? After all this time, you just want to break up with me? I'm about to deliver a speech about the strength of our love and how it surpasses science and nature and... Helen? You know what? I'm going to forget her. No, literally. I'm going to find the memory of her in my mind and erase it right in front of you. Inside this bottle, I have a pioneering medicine called Sandali, which is going to do exactly that. Let me explain how it works. So, my brain is made of neurons. small cells that make countless connections with each other. And brain signals use these connections to travel inside the brain, similarly to how electricity flows within a circuit, with the exception that between neurons, charged particles are transferred with the use of some small transporters, which we call neurotransmitters. Now, think of it as brain signals. They make a difference in the way they make networks. Like many neural bonds mean many different combinations of neurons. So many neural networks. And that means that if a brain signal travels through one path, it translates into one thing. If it travels through another path, it translates into something different. Now, memories are similarly stored in the brain in forms of small circuits. So just imagine this. Okay, now memories are stored in the brain in small circuits. That means that if a memory is stored... Okay, so let's imagine it this way. Let's forget all this, because this is part of my speech. Okay. So the whole point of this is that, okay, the brain is made of neurons that make bonds. Okay, so... Okay, so I will find it. So let's imagine this. You all have some memories in your mind. I'm totally making this up right now. So your memories are like stored into different places in your mind. They're not stored in one place. Just imagine it like a musical concert, where its piano, flute, and violin are all stored into different places of your mind. It's like stored in different cities, and all those cities stored into different studios. And then there's a deeper region of your mind, which is called the hippocampus, which takes all those cities and plays them simultaneously, giving form to the memory as a whole. So, in a way, hippocampus is actually a DJ, but constructs the memory as a completed episode. Now, let's go back to my whole presentation. Like, the thing is that research has shown that as time passes, memories tend to become more and more positive. Because when you think about memories, you are stimulating some bonds that the neurons within your brain have. And these bonds, by being stimulated, they are also changing. So what happens is your memories tend to become more and more positive. The thing about this is that it actually explains why we always feel nostalgic of the past, remembering better times than now. But we continue to miss that now whenever it becomes yesterday. So do I have a magic elixir that is just going to make those girlfriend neurons disappear? No, I don't. Sandal is just a Greek brand of Ouzo. But the thing is that, as I said, a breakup might feel bad right now, but tomorrow it's going to be just another beautiful memory. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to say that was a beautiful recovery.
Yeah.
You did really well. That's a tough thing. You did really well. That was fantastic.
That was the one thing I didn't want to happen. Okay.
But I think it's also there's a real danger, and I've done this, and believe me, I know this danger, is to talk about memory on a stage where you're relying on memory.
Where you don't have the memory to support it, yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Leandros, yeah, it was a brilliant recovery, there is no doubt about it. And in some respects, it will remain in our memories because of that. But for you, I've got a feeling you might want to erase that memory. If you're going to go in and selectively target that memory, how would you erase it based on your understanding of the brain?
Okay, so actually there are some methods that support that they can erase a memory, which hasn't been scientifically proven though. But so one method that has to do with optogenetics, which is a very trendy issue right now, which is actually a method of putting something like a switch onto your neurons. And so you can put switches that turn on neurons, and you can put switches that turn off neurons. So if you can find places in your mind that have to do with neurons that support specific memories, you can put these switches that turn them off. And then by following the methods that it's a whole new topic that I'm not going to obviously talk about, but you can switch them off and have this memory probably being erased. And another method supports that by using electricity in your brain, that this electricity goes through the bonds of the neurons and actually makes them somehow not destroyed, but it changes them. And change between neurons means change within the whole network of neurons, and so change in the memory.
Can I ask a question? In your personal view, is it a good thing to erase memories?
The point of the presentation was to support that it's not necessary. But actually, we're also changing our memory by thinking about it. But I don't know if I said it, but it's like because neurons have some bonds with them, and that's how they connect, and that's how electricity travels within them. When you think about it, these bonds are changed. But if you mean that if we had a way to just change the memory, I think that would be a very scary thing, because we are who we are because of memories. Right now, our personality, our emotions, everything is based on our memories. And if we could control them, we would probably be the same, because we all, I think, have some specific stereotypes in our minds of how we want to be. And the thing is that if we can have access to achieve such a thing, it would be such a terrible thing, because everyone that actually influences us through TV, through all media, could actually lead us to a way to want to change ourselves through this. Because right now, there's nothing to actually support that you are who you are and I am who I am, apart from my memories. If someone now comes and tells me that whatever you have in your mind right now is false, and you're just some guy in prison, and I just planted you this memory that you were in this whole in this whole conference, then what am I after that? Like, I am who I am, so I don't think I should change it, like, in a way like that.
Okay, have to leave it there for the eternal sunshine of the spotless Leandros Lamnis. Greek myth or Greek hit? You'll decide later. Right, across the Atlantic now we go to our Famelab USA winner. Every country does Famelab slightly differently, and as we've been hearing, in the States it's been sponsored and run by NASA. First Famelab final in the States, their host was Nichelle Nichols, the original Lieutenant Uhura in Star Trek, which is pretty impressive. Now, I love that NASA, with all their resources and resourcefulness, have looked on something that we started here in Cheltenham and thought they want to get on board with that as well. NASA is still going to be taking part in Famelab in the future, but this is the very last year they're officially piloting it, and piloting is something that NASA knows a thing or two about. Mary Wojtek, NASA's senior scientist for astrobiology, has been heavily involved. I think Mary's in the audience here, so I'm not going to put the lights up and get her to stand up, but I think it'd be great if we can have a ripple of applause to thank Mary and NASA for all they've done for Famelab in the USA and beyond. And we'll keep those plans for Famelab Mars on the back burner. I wouldn't put it past Donald Trump to make a visit to Mars his top priority. So who was the winner of this NASA-supported US Famelab final? That would be climate scientist Elissa Occo. Elissa works at EDF, not the energy giant who are sponsoring tonight, but the US EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund. She looks at the role that short-lived pollutants like methane and black carbon play in climate change, and then takes on the rather trickier challenge of trying to communicate that to non-experts in America. Now, she says what normally helps her is that her true passion, having an artist as a mother, is designing infographics that can get the really big ideas across very visually. And her work's appeared in all sorts of magazines and blogs and scientific articles. But doing infographics can't really benefit you when you're doing Famelab and can't use big presentations or PowerPoints. Or can it? Well, at least it may help her picture you going wild for our Famelab USA champion, Elissa Occo.
Picture this, my husband and I in our first home right after we got married. We're so excited to cook together that we decided to skip dinner and go straight for dessert, making my favorite cookies. Fast forward a half hour later, the oven is on fire. 10 firefighters show up and kindly inform me that the fire was caused by an oven mitt that I'd stored in the broiler while unpacking because I thought it was a drawer. It looks like a drawer. I was mortified. In our kitchens, smoke is not normal, but for 3 billion people, it's a way of life. Nearly half of the world still relies on open fires for cooking, consisting of a pot placed atop 3 large stones with burning firewood underneath. 10 minutes of cooking with this simple method is equivalent to inhaling secondhand smoke from 400 cigarettes. Over 4 million people die every year from this exposure, half of which are kids. That's twice as many people as are killed per year by malaria and HIV/AIDS combined. Imagine learning that cooking for your family is killing them. Unfortunately, that's not the only harm these cook stoves cause. When the smoke rises into the atmosphere, the pollution absorbs sunlight and heat and contributes to climate change. But because cooking is one of the top causes of death in the world, ahead of even unsafe water, hundreds of programs are currently distributing cleaner technologies to save lives. So this should benefit the climate too, right? Not necessarily. Just because a stove improves human health does not mean that it improves climate change. How can this be? Example number 1, you install a chimney. So you still use wood when you cook, but now you divert the indoor pollution outdoors. Therein lies the problem. Now almost all of the smoke is entering the atmosphere. So better for health, but worse for the climate. Example number 2, you replace wood with charcoal. Charcoal burns a lot more efficiently than wood, and so it's much better for pollution because it doesn't emit as much. But producing charcoal is done by burning wood. And so you're basically now having pollution from fuel production of charcoal, but also households that are burning charcoal. Again, better for health, but worse for the climate. Example number 3, you replace wood with liquid or gas. Liquid and gas also much more efficient when burning than solid fuels, but many are fossil fuels, and so they may commit us to more fossil fuel infrastructure. Again, better for health, but worse for the climate. Now, I want to be clear that not all improved stoves are worse for the climate. But if we focus only on health, then we may make the mistake of fixing one problem, but making another problem even worse. My job as a climate scientist is to make sure that doesn't happen. Because just as cooking shouldn't kill your children, it shouldn't kill our planet either. Thank you.
Alyssa, great story. I'm a bit worried. I go camping with my mates at the weekend and we have a big fire. Does that mean like I'm killing my mates off every time I start cooking for them? Should we all have to stop cooking on fires when we go camping? Is that what you're telling us?
So you can basically think of these people in these communities in developing countries as having camping fires in their homes all the time. And they're cooking 3 times a day, and it's taking at least an hour to cook each meal. And so I traveled to Ghana in last November, and everywhere you went in these communities were, smoke coming off of these fires. And so absolutely not. Going camping a few times a year with your buddies and, sitting around a campfire is nothing compared to these women and children that spend their entire lives over these types of fires.
And just one quickie, what's the evidence that there's a relationship between climate change and these fires?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Good job.
I've been preparing for that for days, just trying to slot it in somewhere.
So black carbon is a solid particle. It's emitted from diesel engines. It's that, that black soot that you see coming out of trucks. And 25% of black carbon emissions are coming from residential cooking and heating. And black carbon accounts for around 10% of the warming that we're experiencing today. It is 1 million times more effective at trapping energy than CO2. So it is a very powerful absorber of sunlight, and so it causes warming in our climate.
So, really interesting talk. What's the solution?
So my mom keeps asking me that. Every time I give her an answer, she's like, but what's the solution? The point is that because this is such a global health crisis, there are already so many organizations that are working on solutions to fix this problem. And so really, the only thing you need to do is just make sure that when you're evaluating a new cook stove technology to see whether or not you want to disseminate that to communities, all you have to do is just take into account the climate impacts. It's really as simple as that. We have a good understanding of what it will do to the climate. It's just right now, there's so many people working on the health aspect as opposed to the climate aspect. So that climate aspect just kind of gets neglected by accident.
Can I just ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Then?
Go on then.
So this is sort of a quick question, but not. So I've spoken to people in Ghana about this, the same sort of question, and said, why don't you use solar cookers? And they immediately say, we like cooking this way. This is our culture.
Yeah.
How are you going to address that problem?
You know, when I first started researching this area, that was my reaction. It's like, well, why not solar? It's so renewable. It's, you know, and it doesn't produce any emissions. But, you know, a huge problem that we've seen that is that people are used to cooking a certain way with what they use, and they're used to the way the food tastes. And so that has been one of the biggest challenges. So it's not disseminating these cook stoves. You could give a family a cook stove for free, but it's the adoption of these cook stoves that's the real challenge. And so that's kind of when the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, when they talk about their objectives over the long term, it's to facilitate adoption of these stoves. And it requires a lot of education, a lot of cultural acceptance, except one family, for example, accepting it and then sharing it with their friends and having them understand why they use it, and so that kind of thing. But it's a really big challenge and important to note.
Sorry, I hate to smother the flames. Can we thank again our American champion, Elissa Occo? And I love the way she diplomatically didn't answer Mark's question as to whether he was homicidally killing all his friends. Yes, you are. We have, by the way, arranged a kind of smoky atmosphere in here for tonight just to make you feel in the right place. Now, from the US to the UK, and our reigning Famelab champion, an anagram of envy leaks, is Kyle Evans. If you drew a Venn diagram with maths teacher on one side and folk musician in the other, then Kyle would probably just rub it out and do something else, because he's always trying to find new and inspiring ways to communicate his love of maths. Although he says he resists bringing his guitar into the classroom in case he comes over all David Brent. Carl teaches A-level maths at Barton Peveril College, a school that's already brought us Oscar winner Colin Firth and Mercury Music Prize winner Joe Newman from Alt J. I love Alt J. Can it now bring us a Famelab International winner? As a mathematician, he knows he's got at least an 8.333 recurring % chance. Clap along, please, with our Famelab UK champion, Kyle Evans.
Let's put the numbers all in a line, and some of these numbers we'll call the primes, the whole numbers that can't be arranged into rows and columns 2 different ways. The problem comes when you try to guess based on what's before which prime might come next, 'cause primes are all numbers DNA, but chaotic in a Jeff Goldblum way. The Riemann hypothesis. Tell me quickly, friend, what it is. No greater problem might yet exist than the Riemann hypothesis. The primes get more sparse, but they don't run out. Any first-year student could show you that. But the strange thing is there also exists of any given length a prime-free list. And Riemann said 1859, on the context plane there exists a line where the zeta function zeros are found, and that's sort of code for where primes hang out. The Riemann hypothesis. Tell me quickly, friend, what it is. No greater problem might yet exist than the Riemann hypothesis. And Riemann's work was just 10 sides long, but still no one's proven it right or wrong. There's £1 million on it either way, but don't go expecting a proof today. Just last year, as the winter drew, a Nigerian doctor set out his proof. It would have been great for diversity, but it was probably bogus, unfortunately. The Riemann hypothesis. I know what you're thinking. If it hasn't been proven yet and it's in mathematics, it should be called a conjecture, right? Don't worry, I've got you covered there as well. The Riemann conjecture, a harder word to find rhymes for sure. Nothing more safe in mathematics pure than the Riemann conjecture. So what's the use in these endless primes? Well, they keep you safe from computer crimes, as I'm sure the ladies would all agree. Finding a real long one is hard indeed. And 2 real long ones, even more tough, which is good when you're online buying stuff. This is just one reason why primes are great, but mathematicians love them for their own sake. Everybody, the Riemann hypothesis. No greater problem might yet exist than the Riemann hypothesis. Sorry, I forgot where I was there for a moment. Pardon me.
Fantastic. Carl, you're talking to a man who is literally mathematically illiterate, if you can be such a thing. But one of the things I gleaned from that song was that this hypothesis of the study of prime numbers is very linked to computer software, to security in software, and to encryption and things like that. I mean, am I right in
absolutely, yeah.
Right.
RSA encryption is the one that you might have heard of. Yeah. So if I could elaborate a bit. So if you take 2 really huge prime numbers and multiply them together, that enormous number you get, it can only be the product of those 2 prime numbers, because that's how primes work. And then very briefly, you make the 2 smaller primes sort of the private part of the key, and you make the enormous product of those 2 the public part, very roughly, and that's what happens every time you put your account details into Amazon or something.
Right. I almost understand. It's good for me. I'm proud.
Very good. I don't know how to follow on from that. Could you write that into music? I liked your singing. I liked the sort of folky tune, but it was quite repetitive. So I would like to, if you had to devise a tune, would it be possible to do that with the thing you've just talked about?
That's harsh. Well, I'd give it a go. But the thing is, it's about engagement, isn't it? So if I wrote there's something called math rock. You might have heard of this. Well, possibly not. Very complicated time signatures, really strange extended song parts. It's called math rock because it's so complex. The perception of math is that it's so complex, isn't it? But what I'm trying to do is engage people. So if they can't remember anything about the Riemann hypothesis other than the chorus that's stuck in their head, maybe they might go away. And there's loads of brilliant people putting stuff on YouTube just as well as I could do in a folk song. So I'm more going for that approach instead.
Thank you.
Have you ever tried comparing how much people absorb when you teach them something in song compared to if you teach them that same thing just talking?
I haven't done a controlled study, but only from going on my own experience. As Quentin said, I don't use the guitar in class really because it just is a bit much. But I think in terms of finding a hook or something to, because I've been teaching mathematics for about 10 years, and students, staff as well. Oh, I heard the creaking steps of doom there. Excuse me. But yeah, students and adults, everyone from a very young age can get really opposed to mathematics. So if you've always got some sort of hook, something that levels it out and makes everyone feel like they've got a way in, it doesn't necessarily have to be playing a repetitive song on the guitar. It could be anything. But it tends, from my subjective viewpoint, to work.
Okay, prime time entertainment from Kyle Evans. I was just wondering, in his early days, Paul Simon used to be known as Ryman Simon, so maybe Carl might be known as Riemann Seaman. No, maybe not, no. I just say, I think Kathy may have asked the harshest question in the history of Famelab. Could you do that again, but with a tune? I think that is extraordinary. I should also say that Carl says that after touring the UK for 10 years with various folk bands with limited success, he says he got his big break after winning Famelab UK, when he was asked on Radio 4 to perform the piece he did in the final on Logarithmic Love. That is what Famelab is all about. He's got his fame. Now, I first met Carl when I hosted that UK final back in April, And I first met our next finalist when I hosted the Famelab South Africa final last month. What's weird is I was in Cape Town for completely separate reasons, nothing to do with Famelab, making a BBC radio programme, and somebody came up to me and said, the host for Famelab has got trapped, they can't get out of the country they're meant to be in to make it. Can you host Famelab final in about 8 hours' time? I'm very glad I did. It was a fantastic occasion, and among other things, I saw a huge amount of talent, and I got to meet the winner, Nozipho Gumbi. Nozipho is a PhD student at the University of South Africa. She's working on using nanotechnology to help filter and purify water. She's very passionate about helping South Africa to grow and develop, and the same seems to apply to Nozipho herself. After a victory in Cape Town, she tweeted, "Never doubt yourself. If opportunities present themselves, grab them with both hands, because you never know where those may take you." They've taken her all the way to the Famelab International Final. Prepare for a crystal clear stream of consciousness from our reigning South Africa champion, Nozipho Gumbi.
We are living in a world that is ever changing every single day. The extent to which things are certain means that they'll move again. They change. With such dynamics happening in our world, surely this must be an indication that we cannot be doing things the same way that we did 10 years ago. What do I mean by this? Well, allow me for the next few minutes to take you on a journey to explore one of the most widely used water treatment processes called membrane filtration and its ability to remove pollutants from water. But before then, I would like to share a story with you which has come up recently. With advances made in machines used for water testing, there has been a newer class of pollutants which has been detected in our water sources, including the drinking water. These pollutants are very small in size, not visible to the naked eye. They are called micropollutants. They've been identified to originate from a number of sources, ranging from pesticides to pharmaceutical products, things like contraceptive pills, slimming pills, and a whole lot of other industrial pollutants. The issue with having these micropollutants present in our water systems is the fact that they're able to interfere with the body's normal functioning, in both us humans and in animals. In fish, for example, there have been several cases whereby they have been reported to cause feminization. That simply means that a male fish species, once subjected to them, will now have female reproductive organs. In some instances, it may even have both male and female reproductive organs. But that should not be our only concern. We should also consider the public's perception with regards to their presence in water. If I were to ask you this question, would you feel comfortable knowing that the water that you're drinking each and every day may contain traces of some pills in it, even though that water will not pose a direct risk to your health? I bet very few of us can respond on the affirmative, with a few exceptions, of course. The believers of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, allow me to demonstrate to you how some of the currently available membrane filtration processes would try and remove these micropollutants. For this demonstration, I'd like for you to imagine that the stuff which is responsible for this brown color in this solution to be micropollutants. This is how the process would pan out. Oh, wait, but the solution that is coming out on the other side still has this brown color. What does this mean? This simply means that this filter is failing to completely remove these pollutants because its openings are much more bigger than the sizes of these pollutants. For this reason, my research is looking into modifying the currently available membrane filters to make them even smaller and perhaps give them even extra properties by using materials that are called carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are simply tubular in structure, just like these drinking straws, and are entirely made up of carbon. But of interest to us, amongst their many other interesting features, is that their sizes are very small, that you can actually fit 10,000 of these inside a single strand of hair. With such small sizes, that means that we can be able to effectively control the passage of just pure water molecules through, while preventing, to a large extent, the passage of micropollutants. All of this is in an effort towards providing water that is of improved quality to the consumers while promoting economic vitality and productiveness of our continent and the world at large. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll start, although I'll try not to ask the most horrible question, since that's obviously my... really fascinating. What's going through my head, though, is they take out the bad stuff, but do they also stop good stuff getting through? Are there particular really tiny microorganisms, microalgae, I don't know, that we want in our water that they will remove?
Can you please repeat the question?
So they clean the water,
Yes.
but do they clean out good things as well as bad?
Well, it depends. Most of the times, you can tailor them to particularly remove the stuff that you want to remove. But in most cases, the nutrients and all the right stuff that we need in our water is still maintained. So it is just these micropollutants or whatever pollutant it is that you are targeting that you can be able to effectively remove.
So they can be that selective?
Yes, they can be made. They can be made selective. That's right.
I just because I've spent some time in a materials science laboratory where they had carbon fibre nanotubes, but that was a couple of years ago. But it seemed like they were very rare. They were very hard to produce. I mean, is it now possible to manufacture it or to produce it on a big scale?
For now, it is still on lab scale. We're still producing them on a lab scale and testing them and making sure, because before we can even exploit them on a larger scale, we need to cover all aspects. Look at the possibilities of, are these carbon nanotubes really working? Are they not adding to the harmfulness? What are the sort of properties that they are extruding or extending out onto this filter? So we need to cover all of those aspects first before we can realize the full large-scale
Yeah, no. Good.
What else can you do with them?
What else can you?
What else can you do with the particles?
filter.
Let's say with the carbon nanotubes.
Okay, yeah, carbon nanotubes have got multifunctional properties. Not only are they small, but they also have antibacterial properties. They are also very strong. So with them having antibacterial properties, so
how does that work? How do they have antibacterial properties? How does that work?
It is by virtue of their being that they have these antibacterial properties. So the way that they are, they just by the nature of the carbon nanotubes themselves, it makes them to have these antibacterial properties, but not as much as the ones that you would get by using a disinfectant, for example. But there have been studies which have been done whereby bacteria have been exposed to the carbon nanotubes, and when you control the before and the after reaction, you can actually see that there's some sort of reduction in the number of bacteria.
And do you know how that works?
Very briefly.
I'm not quite sure how it works for now, but I just know that it's possible that they can exude these properties.
Fascinating.
That was brief. Thanks. Another torrent of pure, refreshing applause for our South Africa champion, Nozipho Gumbi. And Kathy, don't worry about asking a question as cruel as that. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't ask a question as cruel as that. Now, we are halfway, and starting us off on the home straight is our 2016 Italian champion, Lorenzo Pizzuti. Lorenzo is a cosmologist at the University of Trieste, and he says his involvement with Famelab is both an honour and a very significant experience, as he's been fascinated since childhood by the mysteries of the universe and its secrets, and he thinks it might help him solve them. Now, steady on, Lorenzo. I'm a big fan of Famelab, but I'm not entirely sure it's going to help you solve the mysteries of life, the universe, and everything. When not contemplating the cosmos, Lorenzo is in a parallel universe as a concert pianist and has been playing in public for 5 years. I don't think it's entirely practical for him to drag a piano on now, so it's going to have to be a solo performance from our Famelab Italy champion, Lorenzo Pizzuti.
Mankind, always sure to be the conqueror of the universe. Well, I'm gonna show you that is a lie. Together we will make a journey into the darkness of the cosmos to discover who or what is the real Lord of the universe. Well, let us imagine that the entire content of the universe is in this room. It's all of you. Now, first row, stand up. Stand up. First row, stand up. Okay, great. Thank you. Let's imagine about the matter we are made of. The matter of the objects, of the stars, the planets, the galaxies, all the radiation and the matter in the universe. Well, this is simply you, just the first row of the entire room. Only the 4% of the universe is what we actually know. Okay, you can sit down. Many thanks. Since 1970, scientists started to think on the presence of a new kind of matter, a matter completely different from the ordinary one, a matter that is around us also in this moment, but we can touch it because it interacts in very unknown ways. This is the dark matter. We don't know if it's made of particles in the common sense of the word, but we know that it's existing thanks to the fact that it's affected by gravity, just like the other objects around us. And it also changes how the visible objects move in the space so that we are able to detect the obscure halo. And the result is awful, because the dark matter is 6 times the ordinary one. Mankind! Not only we are not the center of the universe, but we aren't even made for the predominant matter in the universe. But the surprise is still at the beginning, because if we take into account also the dark matter, we arrive to cover more or less the 7th row of this room. So please, hands up from the A to G row. Hands up, hands up. Okay, many thanks. But what are the rest of you? What is missing? Well, the universe is expanding, but not in a linear way or slowing. It is accelerating. There is something, a force, an energy that seems to come to the vacuum itself. That the more the universe expands, the more this energy gains power, increasing its presence in each point of the space, giving strength to the universe to expand further. This is the dark energy, and it fills the 70% of our universe. We don't know how it's generated. We don't know why it's acting in this way. But we know that it's the dark energy, the real Lord of the universe, that is slowly taking place around everything, transforming the entire universe in a huge, dark grave. Yes! Thank you.
We're all speechless. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
It's terrifying.
It was terrifying.
I'm scared stiff.
Yeah.
I dropped this thing, so now I'm normal.
Okay, yeah.
More or less, okay, yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's quite. I've been involved in the
I'm not going to kill you.
No,
okay.
no. But science fiction. I've been involved in science fiction for many years, and we've never gone that far. And I just wish we had. I'm sending emails tonight to the writer, the Lord of Dark Matter. We've got to meet him.
Oh God, yeah. Have you got a question, or should I?
No, I'm just blown away.
I'm simply stunned.
Have you got any questions?
I do have a question. Yeah. I mean, probably most people have heard of dark matter now. The detection and the certainty of it. How do we detect it, and how certain are we of those numbers?
Okay, well, there are several ways to detect the dark matter, but also the dark energy. One way is obviously to see how the stars move in the galaxies, because the motion of these stars is like that there is a large amount of matter, and if you count the single stars, the mass of the single stars, this matter is not enough to produce this kind of motion. There is something, and this something is the dark matter. This is one way. Other way, for example, is to detecting in which way the universe is expanding. Because the way of the expansion of the universe is due to what is inside the universe. So, if you take into account also only the visible light, you don't have such kind of expansion of the universe. So, these are the proof of such kind of things, let's say.
What's the latest research in this area?
What
is the latest research in the area of dark matter?
Well, we have a lot of projects in dark matter. Actually, I work better in dark energy because I just we have the dark matter.
What's the difference between dark matter and dark energy then?
Oh, actually, we don't know. We know that the dark matter is such kind of matter. We only say, the name is dark matter because we love to say that, but we don't know what actually is it. The dark energy, on the contrary, is something that we know that is consider. Oh, I feel the dark presence of. Consider a gas. A gas. When you try to pull down a gas, this tries to force you. the dark energy is something that acts in the opposite way. So when you free the dark energy, it increases power. So what is the contrary of the matter. So we have this type of these two things. Sorry for my English. I'm an Italian.
No, you're very
I know.
good. You're very good.
Okay, he may be on the dark side, but the force is strong with this one, Lorenzo Pizzuti. Who knows? And Lorenzo, for future reference, if you're in England, if you've got the judge terrified of you saying, "I'm not going to kill you," is not actually reassuring. Every year we get new countries joining Famelab. Now, the British Council will be announcing a new one tomorrow. I can't reveal which, but a clue is it has a population of over 1 billion people, which should make it nice and competitive getting through the heats. This time round, we had our first ever involvement from Qatar, and their winner, Ida Rafat, has made it all the way to the final. Ida has a master's in environmental engineering and works on wastewater treatment, but she says her interests in science overflow her official research area and spread right across it. Space, evolution, quantum physics, neuroscience. Ida wants to learn more. And besides accumulating this knowledge, she loves sharing it. And it's amazing what you can get across in just 3 Famelab minutes. Prepare to go on a Qatari safari with Ida Rafat.
Desalination is the process of converting the ocean's salty water to fresh drinkable water. But why desalination is so important to humans? Because if you combine all the fresh water in the world, from rivers, lakes, and streams, all of these will account for less than 1% of the total water on Earth. And even this 1% is not equally distributed. Regions such as the Arabian Gulf, where I come from, suffers from an extreme freshwater scarcity. But fortunately, we have an unlimited access to seawater, which we can desalinate and have fresh water. And this is how we survive every day, by a process called thermal desalination. In this process, we boil the seawater to produce steam, and then we cool down the steam to produce fresh distilled water. It's basically the simple distillation concept that you studied in school. But to make this simple concept in a mega-scale production can be very challenging. Why? Well, let's zoom in into the molecular level of water. Water molecules are very social. They love to bond with each other via a special network of hydrogen bonds. Only problem is, if you want to vaporize this water, you need to put in significant amount of energy to break down this network and free the water molecules to the gas phase. To vaporize only 1 pound of water, we need to put in 300,000 calories of energy, which is huge. This is about 1,000 hours of working out at the gym to burn the same amount of calories. So in order for this process to make sense in a mega-scale production, we need to recover this energy input. And we do this in a very smart and elegant way. First, we divide the process into stages, and we reduce the pressure in each stage to allow the water to boil at lower and lower temperatures. Then, we provide this external heat energy required to boil the seawater. And as the seawater passes the first stage, it evaporates, forming steam. And here comes the trick. We use this steam produced in stage 1 to boil the seawater that is at a lower boiling temperature in stage 2. And then as it does, we use the steam produced in stage 2 to boil the seawater in stage 3. So every time we produce steam in a stage, we transfer back its heat energy to boil the seawater for the next stage. And at the same time, this steam will be condensed to fresh distilled water. So by doing this internal loop of energy recovery between the seawater and the steam, now we can produce a 20 kilogram of fresh distilled water in 20 different stages using the same initial kick of energy. This staging effect makes thermal desalination concept efficient for mega-scale factories. These factories are the only lakes and rivers we know in the desert, and this is how millions of people survive every day in one of the driest regions in the world. Thank you.
I have a question. Yes. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while, and we used to get our desalinated water in these big jirkin, the big gallons of plastic things. Is that still done in the Gulf region? And do they pump drinking water now through the normal pipes so that you can get them into
yes,
the homes?
actually now they're no longer these things. Now there are like network underground, and actually they are one of the most efficient networks.
And so you can get drinking water in the house now?
Yes, directly, yes, of course.
Does that take energy? Does that use a lot of energy?
It's not really. Like the transport of it doesn't consume a lot of energy. It's basically the production of it.
Okay.
So, two questions, I guess. It still takes a lot of energy.
It does.
So one is, what happens when the oil runs out?
What happens
when oil runs out in the
Oh,
region?
wow. We will be in trouble, believe me.
Yeah.
We'll be in a serious trouble. But the thing is, why does this thermal desalination technology works very perfectly in the Gulf region is because that we do not do thermal desalination as a standalone technology. We do it with power generation. So we do a cogeneration process. We produce electricity, and when we produce electricity, it's a thermodynamic efficiency of this cycle of producing electricity. We have to produce heat. We have to reject heat out of this electricity production. And then we use this heat to generate the water, to do this thermal desalination. So if the fuel have run out, we will be in trouble because we're not having electricity and water, both together.
So, and then it's a sort of two-part question. If you're at this moment in time saving an awful lot of energy, where is that going at this moment in time?
What is it?
If you're saving energy at this moment in time with this process, where does that get redirected to?
It's not saving, it's that the electricity production, the thermodynamic efficiency of producing electricity from fossil fuel sources is 40%. This is like the thermodynamic efficiency of the cycle of this process. So 60% of the fuel that you're burning is being rejected as a waste heat. So what we're doing, which is again another engineering thing, is that we do this heat energy recovery. We take this waste heat from the electricity production and we do it to boil the seawater.
I mean, the only one thing I want to ask, because I thought I'd seen that, I think it was in fact in Dubai, was effectively a solar system, the same thing. So it was large solar, it was large black roofs over seawater channels that were dehydrating the water, catching it in.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, you've got quite a lot of sun, more than we have.
Yes, we do, but
I'm
we
just
also
saying, please use some of that.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of research areas going on now in the solar, obviously. But one of the technicalities that we have using solar energy is the dust, because we have a lot of dust. So all these solar panels will be like covered with dust in a couple of hours, which will reduce their efficiency dramatically.
Okay, from a nation that does see desalination, our Qatar champion, Ida Rafat. I was slightly worried, Rob, when you mentioned solar system. You were going to start asking about astronomy, but I realised where you were going with it as well.
I've moved on.
Now, of all our 12 finalists, in fact, of all our 27 Tremi finalists, Ida Rafat has the shortest name, 9 letters. And as chance would have it, next we have the longest of all. All the 27 are Malaysia winner Abhimanyu Virakumarasivam, 25 letters. A geneticist specialising in work on bladder cancer, Abby is a believer that poor or non-existent science communication leads to distrust and disenchantment rather than promoting prosperity and peace. So he set about rectifying that right across Malaysia. He now chairs their Young Scientists Network. He's been involved with a nationwide programme to take science and science information to rural communities, and he's entered Famelab and made it all the way to the grand final. He's got a long name, he's come a long way, so a big Malaysian ovation, please, for Abhimanyu Virakumarasivam.
Yesterday, I talked about how cancer cells are able to evade the immune system and then result in metastasis, which is the spread of cancer cells into other sites. But how does the cancer transformation process actually start? And why do cancer incidence increase in age? It's because of the cell cycle and the genes that actually control it. The cell cycle is a series of events where a single cell is able to divide and duplicate, and when it goes old or damaged, it's replaced with new cells. And this is why, when you are growing up, what happens is that the cell birth rates are a lot higher than the cell death rates, which is why you are able to grow from a single cell into the beautiful trillion cells that you are. as you grow into adulthood, what happens is that, and you stop growing, it's because the birth rate and the death rate actually equalizes. But of course, you're wondering why some people grow continuously horizontally. But that's probably because of not the increase in the cell number, but the increase in the size of the fat cells due to overnutrition. Anyhow, as we grow a lot older, what happens is that the cell cycle rate reduces, and what happens is that the cell death is higher than the cell birth, which is why your grandmother's appears to be shrinking. But most cancer cells acquire between 20 to 80 mutations in the cell cycle control genes, and this results in the loss of the balance of the cell cycle. And what happens when the cell birth increases so dramatically than the cell death, that's when the tumor grows into large cancers, as we know. But luckily, it takes about 15 to 40 years for a single normal cell to get its first mutation and then becomes a cancer viable cell. And this is why cancer incidence increases with age. Just like how the risk of accidents increase with the length of your journey. The longer that you're on the road, the higher that you're going to get into an accident. And cancer-causing agents such as tobacco and cigarette smoking and ionizing radiation are essentially like potholes or slippery roads that result in our increased risk of cancer in our lives. But what's most exciting is because the rate of replacement of cells is really high when you're young, so usually what happens is that when a normal cell gets mutated, it's very essential that it gets destroyed before it actually becomes a cancer. And that is why if you quit smoking before you turn 30, your risk of cancer essentially reduces so significantly that's almost that of someone who's never smoked. In fact, even if you stop smoking at the age of 50, your cancer risk actually dramatically reduces. Which is why, as a geneticist, I know that genetics is going to change the way cancer is going to be diagnosed and treated in the age of precision medicine. But really, science communication is essential because 40% of all cancers can actually be avoided if we actually modified our lifestyles as well as protected the environment so that we inhibit DNA damage to our cell cycle. And that is why it is so important that we celebrate scientific facts, communicate them so effectively so that we can not only be able to increase public awareness and public health improvements, but also to impact the necessary political will and change. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's really great, but if I had to say, okay, what's the biggest question that we still have to address in cancer biology, would you say?
So I think with the moonshot that Vice President Biden is leading in the US, the question is basically how can we truly genotype the cancers effectively at its molecular level? And I think the idea is that we no longer look at cancer based on the origins of organs, but actually the genetic orchestra that has been, sort of lost or disorganized due to the various different mutations and the lifestyles that we actually live. And I think the second biggest question, I think, is not just about the science, but really about how we can actually convey that to individuals in the context of perception of risk, and across the world. And the affordability is another big question that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a lovely presentation. You've got a great, charismatic style, which I love. It's wonderfully endearing and pulls you in. So much. Which is a sort of slight apology for this tricky question, is the truth of it. Okay, and now the bad news. There has been a revolution in cancer in the last 10 years, and genomics is one, but also in immunotherapy. Can you chat us through immunotherapy and where we are at this moment in time?
Sure. The thing is that it's very exciting. And in fact, the talk that I talked about yesterday was about how we use viruses to kill cancer cells, the inclusion of checkpoint inhibitors in the context of immune cells. So not only immunotherapy, but epigenetics. I think we are realizing that the solution is not going to be one hit. There's not going to be a magic bullet, and it's how you actually combine. And so in the context of immunotherapy, while viral therapy is one example, but in a larger scale, what happens is that in most cancer cells, what happens is that they're able to elicit certain molecules that actually switch off these immune cells, and therefore the immune cells can't actually recognize them. And so there are a whole lot of new inhibitors that are being tested, and one example is the PD-L1 checkpoint inhibitor that has shown dramatic increase in survival rates in melanoma, and it was just in the last 1 week with the American Clinical Oncology Society announcing it. So the area is now how can we use not only the ability of the known agents to kill cancer directly, but also how can we activate this natural kryptonite, which is the immune cells that have been left dormant, to then jointly kill the cancer cells.
Nice one.
Is there something we can learn from cancer cells that would help us teach normal cells to live longer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent question. The reason why cancer cells are able to live a lot longer is because, just like stem cells, it's able to elongate its telomeres, and so therefore it doesn't go into terminal differentiation. And so, in the context of normal cells, the problem is that. And so the idea is, in a lot of work where in the induced pluripotent stem cells, where you take out differentiated cells, the idea is that can we switch on a couple of transcription factors to be able to switch on the telomerase reverse transcriptase gene, so that these normal cells can also have that ability. But the question, I think, is, do we want normal cells to continuously differentiate? Because there is an order in which the cells organize itself into the beautiful people that we are, and also functional.
Nice use of beautiful people at the end. Answers to Cancer from a Malaysia winner, Abimanyu Vilakumarasivam. So on to our anti-penultimate finalist, and it's our Polish champion, Karolina Nowak. A physician and PhD student in endocrinology, Karolina was crowned the winner in Warsaw after beating off really strong opposition, including her own husband. That must have been a tricky night in their household, but he is here now to give Karolina his support. Karolina's research interests are remarkably broad, from diabetes to trying to develop a 21st century stethoscope to studying the way marine mammals speak so that we can enable divers to talk directly to each other underwater. Karolina says, every day I combine academic work with clinical work and motherhood, which often turns out to be quite a challenge. Despite those challenges, she still entered Famelab, she says, because she told me, I never say I cannot do it, I say I will try. She tried, she succeeded, and now she's here to try again. In pole position for the next 3 minutes, Karolina Nowak.
200 years ago, French physician René Laennec wanted to examine his well-endowed female patient. At that time, listening to the heart and lungs, what we call auscultation, was performed by applying an ear to the chest. He felt awkward doing this, so he rolled up a piece of paper into the shape of a tube, he applied it to his patient's chest, and voila, the stethoscope was born. The human ear is not sensitive to receiving sounds from the inside of our body because most of these sounds are within low frequencies band, way below the range of our best hearing. The stethoscope improves it, but still it is not a perfect tool. So, what is wrong with it? Firstly, for 50 years it practically hasn't changed, and modifications haven't really improved the quality of what the physician hears. Secondly, sometimes it happens that we fail to identify a disease or we're not really sure of the diagnosis. But don't tell the physician I've told you that, okay? The most important part of the stethoscope is the chest piece, including the diaphragm and the bell. 50 years ago, it was shown that it works as a filter. The chest piece was placed above a loudspeaker, and the pure tones from the lowest to the highest frequencies were played. The output signal was measured at the second end of the stethoscope. So, based on this research, the bell chest piece is to emphasize lower frequencies, so it should be used for heart auscultation. The diaphragm chest piece is to enhance higher frequencies, so lung sounds should be heard better. Well, and it's certainly true when you auscultate a loudspeaker, which doesn't happen very often, right? So, as a result of this observation, we conducted our own study, and it turned out that the acoustic chest piece and its acoustic parameters change during the patient's auscultation because it has contact with the body. So, in fact, it doesn't work as a filter. And what we've known for 50 years, it's not quite true. So, what can we do to develop the stethoscope of the 21st century? Firstly, we want to adapt the signal to the characteristic of hearing. Secondly, we want to emphasize sounds emitted from our body and process them in a way that they are typical of a disease. And I hope that thanks to our work, the stethoscope will better fulfill its function because sometimes it's the only diagnostic tool the doctor can rely on. Thank you.
My question is coming from a position of great ignorance. Are you talking about, for instance, an electronically enhanced device or a different physical shape and design of the existing stethoscope?
Well, it was about a stethoscope in general. Well, about the research I was talking about, it was acoustic stethoscopes, obviously, because I don't think they had an electronic stethoscope back then. Right. But there are electronic stethoscopes on the market, but the only function is they try to mimic the function of a classic stethoscope, which actually doesn't make any sense. And when you're increasing the volume, because there's a main function, it actually makes the interference from the environment make stronger as well, so it doesn't really change anything. So, and I don't know anyone from my friends and in my environment that uses electronic stethoscope, because actually it doesn't have any advantage over such stethoscope.
So you're talking about then a new design of the existing...
Yes.
Adaptation of the existing technology.
Yeah, well, this year is exactly 200 years after the invention of the stethoscope, and I'm always amazed how, for example, CTs are evolved and they were getting better and better images over time. But stethoscope practically hasn't changed, but we have such a great technology now that I don't really know why it hasn't been improved, but at least it gives me a job. So.
A slightly mad question, but I see you sort of also have an interest in marine animals. Can you learn anything from the way that marine animals hear in order to develop the stethoscope?
Well, maybe not exactly, but this is a part of bioacoustics and hydroacoustics. My speech yesterday was about how the marine mammals can talk underwater and how we can use it for our own purposes. Because my husband is an acoustician, and we developed the device that can allow divers to communicate underwater efficiently without electronics. So basically, the research about marine mammals was how to convert the airborne sounds that they're making to the structure-borne sound that we can hear underwater. I don't know if I answered your question.
I just wonder whether or not, quite often, certainly with structure of things, you can learn a lot from natural biological systems to inform then solutions to the sort of issues you're raising.
Learn a lot from them, yes.
Sometimes things don't change because they're good as they are. Stethoscopes actually are quite good tools that doctors use to give them a good indication of what's happening in the heart in certain kinds of diseases. Are you sure it really needs to be improved? Because there are other diagnostic tools that doctors use after they've listened to the heart and after they've taken that into consideration with another long list of clinical symptoms, that they'll then go on to other kinds of tools.
I know what you mean, but I don't think it's a really perfect tool. I'm a physician, so I can say something about that. Sometimes we need to make a decision quickly. And like I said at my talk, the most sounds that are emitted from our body are in really low frequencies band, like lower than 100 hertz. And our best hearing is like 400 to 4,000 hertz. And we can improve it. So it's not like it's the perfect tool that it cannot be improved. It can be improved, but I don't know why it wasn't.
Okay, you don't need the stethoscope to guess our heart. We'll be beating a little louder now. Our polished Polish winner, Karolina Nowak. Last but one, a position as a semi-professional athlete he's probably not very happy with. We have our Famelab Cyprus champion, Konstantinos Timinis. When not training for track or field, Konstantinos is a master's student in molecular and applied physiology, having already got a PSc in computer engineering. Now, he made it to the Cyprus final last year, but he didn't win. Partly, he thinks, because he appeared with his arm in a sling, having recently had surgery, and everyone watching thought it was just part of his presentation and expected him to do something crazy. Konstantinos says his involvement with athletics gave him the never-say-die attitude to try again this year, without the sling. He won, and as he puts it, managed to replace all last year's bad memories with good ones. But how memorable and how good will the next 3 minutes be? We'll know soon enough as we welcome our Cypriot laureate, Konstantinos Timinis.
It's Saturday night. We are with that special one in bed. Lights are low, emotions are running high. But someone, unfortunately, is not responding. And not even Superman or Batman can help. But Viagra can. Even though an accidental invention help us to solve the very serious problem of erectile dysfunction. But before going how Viagra works, we should first understand how an erection is caused. And the easiest way to do that is to think the penis as a balloon. If a balloon has no air in it, it's limp. As you inflate it with just a little air, it becomes elongated and rigid. Penis uses a similar mechanism, but instead of air, it uses pressurized blood. But that's not enough. If I hold my fingers tight to that tube, is there any chance of the balloon inflating? Obviously not. The penis has muscle cells to regulate blood flow instead of fingers, and arteries to supply the blood instead of the tube. Now, let's go back to that Saturday night. Our brain receives an external stimulus, that special someone naked, in instance, and supply and sends the signal to the penis to fill with blood. This signal also triggers the production of CGMP, a kind of messenger, which forces muscle cells to relax and thus arteries to dilate. So, step one, we need blood to fill with penis. We need penis filled with blood, sorry. Step two, we need CGMP to tell the penis muscles to relax and enjoy the incoming blood. And step three, we need all this to come again. But step three is actually more difficult as it sounds. PD5, a chemical blocker, traps and suppresses CGMP messages, not allowing them to reach the muscle cells. But this is no hard feelings for this, as this is quite essential. Have you ever imagined an erection that wouldn't stop? Trust me, it's a nightmare. In order now to avoid that disastrous night, we probably could increase our body CGMP production so we can dilate the penile arteries, but that would also dilate every other artery in our body, which is extremely dangerous. So, Viagra has in mind this issue and addresses this in an absolutely ingenious way. It eliminates PD5, which is found only in the penis, allowing, in this way, CGMP to grow only in the penile region. So, more CGMP means greater blood flow, hence erections that last longer. However, nothing is perfect, and Viagra may also block the cousin of PD5, PD6, which is found in the eyes and suppresses our blue vision. Anyway, regardless of the color, what's going up must come down. Thanks to Viagra, we can keep it up a little bit longer.
Well, this is always quite a dangerous topic, isn't it? Let's say you get one of those erections that you just can't get down. For all those guys out there that are suffering from this horrendous problem, what would you recommend?
That's called priapism. It's an illness where the erection can't stop, and if it lasts more than 4 hours, then your heart is sending for 4 hours the blood to the penis, and this is very dangerous. And also, the veins in the penis, they are contracted, so the blood is not coming out, and the blood is staying there without oxygen, and this is really bad.
Oh, it sounds awful. And what should I do? I mean, what should they do when this happens?
Sorry?
I need a little advice. What would you recommend in this
You have to go to the hospital.
I got an hospital. Yeah, quickly.
There are times I'm very pleased I'm not a man. And this is one of them. I know nothing about the drug Viagra. Does it come from a plant?
Sorry?
What's the origin of the compound for Viagra? Is it plant-based?
No. In fact, Viagra was started as a cardiovascular medicine. This is for threat angina. But after that, the volunteers wanted more and more pills to get home. More or less, they have to admit that, we have the side effect of erection. So there was no threat for angina, but only erections. So in 1998, Pfizer, the company, turns the Viagra they discovered. So 37 million men from that time, they were happy they have Viagra. It is the fast-selling drug in history.
Viagra has been around for quite some time, and we've known for quite some time that it has several side effects. Is there anything else now out on the market or being developed that's better than Viagra?
There are two more drugs. The one is Cialis. First of all, Viagra, it needs a stimulus to act, and it lasts for 2 hours. Cialis is acts for 6 hours, and it doesn't want stimulus. So you get Cialis and you get an erection. Viagra wants a stimulus. Yes. That's the drugs. For the side effects, I think every medicine must be using in the right way. And if Viagra is used to the right way, there are no side effects.
Okay, you might want to spell out those names again so Mark can make sure he's got them written down correctly.
Personal consultations afterwards.
Of course. Okay, can we please thank for the uplifting stuff from our Cyprus champion, Konstantinos Timinis. And Konstantinos Timinis is also an anagram of instincts to insomnia, which I imagine is another side effect of the problems we've been discussing. Well, we started quite a while ago with Louise talking about elections, and now we've come all the way around to erections, so we've pretty much gone full circle. But finally, in this final, we go less than 400 miles or so south from Cyprus to Egypt, and there, Famelab winner Dina El-Zahiri. A fourth-year biotechnology student at Cairo University, Dina appears to have also made a breakthrough in human cloning because she does so many different things. She does research on treating wastewater with nanoparticles, and research on the effects of new compounds on tumour cells, and yet more research on nutritional genomics. Plus, she's also science director of a computer company, a trainer at the Arabic Society of Stem Cells, and that is only about halfway through the list on her CV. How can she do all this and still find time to enter and win Famelab Egypt? According to Dina, it's because she lives her life by the maxim, we can't stop the wave, but we can learn how to surf and enjoy the ride. And that the key is to celebrate the ups and learn from the downs. She's up next. It's down to the next 3 minutes. So enjoy the ride with our Egyptian big kahuna, Dina El-Zahiri.
I want all of you to close your eyes. Think about the problems, the challenges that you may face. Sometimes you feel like it's really hard to solve it out, like you need a superpower. So I want you to visualize the superhero you would like to be. For me, I would like to be the lizard girl, because there's something interesting about them. Actually, once they lose their own tail, they can regenerate it once again, but I cannot. I mean any other organ. So, by dissecting the tissue of the lizard, we're going to find that it's just like the human tissue, but it has something more. It has enhancers, molecules that helps it to regenerate, and it's not only restricted on healing wounds. So, to mimic this, I would like to have the superpower. Scientists developed something called 3D bioprinter. To look at the core of this printer, you're gonna find that it's just like the normal printer, but here we have a very unique ink. It's the bio ink. Actually, this ink consists of stem cells or cells extracted from the patient himself. So to keep it alive, it has a lot of growth factors. So if you wanted to form any organ like ear, ogre ear, actually you are going to have the dimensional image of this and insert it to a computer connected to this printer. And then those nozzles gonna go up and down, back and forth, drawing the whole ear, like this. But actually, to be stable, we have something. We have cement, which is the hydrogel. So we're going to have hydrogel, cells, hydrogel, and the whole layers, until I have complete the whole organ. And then I may erase it, because it's not really found in the normal ear. But how to erase it? Actually, it's really easy, because 99% of it is water, so it can dissolve. This superpower is beautiful, to be a lizard girl, but actually it's not about me. It's about those people who have face burn, or lose their tips or toes, or in a car accident got to broke their own jaws. So this thing can really help them. And to talk more about the progressive things, actually we can make a lot of organs like heart, kidney, lungs, and can help in the transplantation. And actually, it's much better chance to decrease the probability of being rejected, because we use the cells from the patient himself. So I want all of you to close your eyes once again, think about the whole world with the 3D technology. And I believe that the only limitation in this is your own imagination. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry for the mess. I'm really sorry.
Is it being used?
Yeah, yeah, and luckily we have it in Egypt. Can you imagine this? Yeah, because I'm sorry for this, but really, it's hard in Egypt. Anyway, so to talk about it, yeah, it's applied, and I can tell you the real story behind inventing such thing. It was about an engineer who cut his finger while working on some motor, and actually his brother was a tissue engineering expert, and he started to think with the laser thing until he developed this 3D cell printer, and his brother got the fingertip again with the nail, with everything, and yeah, it's applied. But as I said, it's only restricted on the tip, toes, the ears, and the face burns, just like this. Talking about the transplant, yeah, we can develop those organs, but is it really transplanted and we see it's efficient or not? This is under trial.
The problem with it is, in a simple organ, in a very simple situation where you've got a single cell type, perhaps, where vessels will grow into it, it's fine. How does it deal with the complexity of all the vasculature and the multiple cell types and the differentiation and the integration of all these cells? That, I think, he's going to struggle with, is my guess.
I won't say it's a perfect question, because you really studied a lot, actually. So, yeah, it is. I would tell you something that once they started to grow starting with the tip toes, they found a problem, they thought that there is a kind of a problem, like, if you see the finger, you're going to find the nail, skin, inside of blood vessels, blood capillaries. How can organize everything? So they think it's going to be very hard to solve it out, but actually, under the first tries, they found each cell go and localize in the right place. And by deep analysis, they found that it's only because of the self-induction of each cell. So the complexity wasn't this problem, because it's all about the self-induction of the cells.
Okay, so we've got time for three-dimensional applause, please, for our final finalist and Egyptian champion, Dina El Zahiri. Well, that was great, but was it enough to make our surfer girl, who's leaving the stage now, our winner? I thought she was brilliant. She definitely makes my top 12, but But then I've seen some other good stuff as well. We've seen cell cycles, chasing cicadas, closing down open fires, discovering dark matter, erasing bad memories, finding baby biomes, purifying water in 2 different ways, rhyming Riemann hypothesis, superior stereoscopes, 3D superior stethoscopes, 3D bioprinting, and Viaggravation in strict alphabetical order. All of them were brilliant, but fortunately it is not my decision. It is down to our judges. So this is where they need to start being decisive. So, Robert, Kathy, Nadia, Mark, 1 winner, 2 runners-up is what we need. You need to follow our own 3 C's. We need verdicts that are considered, consensual, and clock in at under 15 minutes. Can we send them on their way, please, with some applause? And by all means, yell for who you think should win in a desperate attempt to influence them. Much good may it do you. Now, while they're away doing their devilish work, we are going to be entertained and experimented on by Marty Jopson. But before he manifests, we also need to do our bit. We need to speedily select which of our 7 women and 5 men deserve the audience prize. Now, the good news is there's no need to confer. It's just a straightforward vote. The bad news is this year, yet again, we're going to try a new way to vote. We've got a long history at Famelab of trying and quite often of failing. But we're always going to try another bit of technology. So the really bad news is we tried this in the Tremi finals, and it was, I think, what is known in the trade as an epic fail. But we're sticking with it because we think we've fixed it. And by we, I mean not me at all. So firstly and most importantly, decide who you think was best. It is that simple. Country of origin, hairstyle, dress sense, length of name, possibility of featuring in some sort of fantasy romance scenario. These should all be disregarded. So should any connection with them if you are a friend or relative or lover of one of the Famelabs, or more than one, and we know you're out there. You don't have to vote for them, they'll never know. So it's completely anonymous. All the finalists have been good, they've been great, they've been Famelabulous. But with 12, it has been a while since the early ones, so we thought it might be useful to help you with a quick reminder before you vote. So here is all of them spliced together in one short, funky video.
Science.
Hi, I'm Nozipo Indi. I am from South Africa. I'm currently studying towards my PhD degree. Tonight, my talk was about development of new membranes that will be used for the treatment of water, but particularly to remove newly emerging pollutants, which are called micropollutants.
Hi, I'm Erin from Australia, and I asked you, what is a scientist doing with a fishing pole in the middle of the Australian desert? And talked about the discovery of a whole new world beneath our feet.
Hello, I'm Abi, and I'm a geneticist, and I'm from Malaysia, truly Asia. I really hope you enjoyed my cancer genetics talk, and I really hope that you could appreciate how cancer genetics is revolutionizing the way we're going to study as well as treat cancer, and more importantly, how awareness and communicating science can actually improve public health.
My name is Alyssa Akko, and I'm from the USA. It was my pleasure to talk to you all tonight about some of the climate challenges with solving the global cooking health crisis.
My name is Alba. I am from Spain. I'm 26 years old, and my talk was about the cicadas, the insect from the Mediterranean that is usually called lazy, but they are not.
Hi guys, I'm Lorenzo Pizzuti from Italy, and my talk was about the dark side of our universe. So what is inside the universe with our matter?
Hi, this is Aida and I represent Qatar. Today I talked about desalination, and with all the greater pressures on our fresh water resources, desalination is our ultimate solution to sustain life on our planet.
Hi, I'm Kyle Evans from Hampshire in the UK, and you might remember my musical mathematical folk song about prime numbers and the Riemann hypothesis.
I'm from Egypt, and I spoke about how to have a superpower, and it's really easy after having this really Bible.
Hello everybody, I'm Karolina from Poland, and I was talking about stethoscopes. They are very important diagnostic tools and how to develop the stethoscope of the 21st century.
Hello everyone, my name is Constantinos Kouminos, and I'm from the line of science. Viagra, how science becomes medicine.
Fan of lawnmowers myself. If you don't have anything on you that can access the internet, congratulations, you've been disenfranchised. The bad news is, so could everybody else if we can't get the Wi-Fi to work like we did during the Tremi-finals. If you haven't done so already, and you don't want to just do this using your own data, join the network. I'm told to say it's Times Science Festival. I noticed there's one also called Times Free Wi-Fi as well. Maybe you can try that. I couldn't actually find the Times Science Festival just now, which was slightly worrying. Once you've done that by one means or another, go to live.voxvote.com. Do not forget the dot, because there is another website up there if you don't use the dot. And as it says, enter the PIN number 66059, which we chose because it's the lowest sum of two primes that are both available in a quadratic expression with a binomial subclause. Okay, that's not really true. Now, that should take you to a page which has a list of all 12 Famelab finalists. If you find the page, good. If you get the page with a yes-no question on Brexit or the England team choice of the match, do not enter anything there. That would be a terrible mistake. So, 6605. Now, we're going to keep the vote open, and we're going to keep this slide up during Marty Jobson's bit, so you get plenty of chance to register as well. Once you have voted, click to leave the event, because that will help other people vote as well. As I say, it's all behind me. It'll be on for the next 15 minutes, which I hope you're going to enjoy, as we watch someone who has demonstrably demonstrated that show is better than tell, and explode is better than either. You may know him from the one show on BBC TV. You may know him from his Edinburgh show, Inventions Go Bang. You may have tickets for his really heavy show and Tricks of the Body here at the weekend. Even if you don't know him, you're going to like him soon. A loud burst of applause, please, for Marty Jobson.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. At last, the stage all to myself. Huzzah, we've got rid of the judges. Hello, everybody. Having fun out there yet? Good. How was that for you lot in the front? Was it okay? Did you enjoy that? Yes! Were they amazing? They were fantastic. And I am significantly intimidated to follow these wonderful people and the wonderful job they did. Because I am a science communicator, which is, well, I mean, it is a statement of how I actually pay my mortgage, but maybe it's a sort of an Alcoholics Anonymous sort of type statement. But I wanted to talk to you about what I consider to be mundane science, everyday science, the science of things all around us. So they allowed me to bring rather more props than these guys were allowed. So I'm going to talk to you about bubbles. Because is there anybody who doesn't love a bubble? If the answer is no, don't tell me, because you're wrong. Hold on. Get the right bubble juice and it's all right. So, bubbles. Everyone loves a bubble. And you can make lots of little bubbles like that with a bit of practice and a room that doesn't have air conditioning. We can make really big bubbles with a little bit of extra help and the right kit. Get this open. We can make some bigger bubbles yet, some Mahusive bubbles like this. Hup. Which are beautiful, wonderful, wonderful things like that. Everybody loves a bubble. So we can make really massive bubbles like that. But the wonderful thing about bubbles, where's my bubble wands? There they are. Is that once you scratch even something as mundane and everyday as a bubble, you scratch the surface and you very quickly discover that there's some really complicated and amazing science that goes on in here. Because, we spend a lot of time in science communication, which is after all what this whole festival is all about, talking about, sort of amazing things going on in deep space and dark matter and all those sort of wonderful things. But you know what? There's science all around us all the time. Look at the bubble, for example. I mean, okay, bubble mixture, this stuff that I've got here, has got 1 or 2, possibly 3 ingredients if I have time, and they let me go that far, if the judges take their time. It's got a few ingredients. The 2 basic ingredients. The first one, surfactant, or soap, fairy liquid, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you're from, and water, the second one. And the bubble is made of a very simple and yet elegant structure. On the outside, you have... that one. On the outside, you have a layer of soap. And then what you have is a layer of water molecules. And then you have another layer of soap. And the wonderful thing about the bubble is the layer of soap is only 1 molecule thick. And the layer of water is only a handful of molecules thick. And the soap on the inside is another molecule. So you've got a molecular sandwich of soap, water, soap. And yet, you can't see molecules. They're below the light resolution of a microscope even. And yet you can see bubbles because of the way the light interacts with those 3 layers and creates a wonderful, complicated bit of physics going on there. Okay? And that underpins the science of that sheet, which was first described by a guy called Plateau, a French guy, in the 19th century. He came up with the 4 laws that determine all of the shapes that bubbles make. If you take 2 bubbles, like this, and you stick them together like that. Oh, okay, not like that. Bubbles and children, okay? Bubbles, animals, and children. You take 2 bubbles and you stick them together like that. The shapes you get when you put them together like that, the angles, all of that can be determined using Plateau's laws. And it goes further. You need to understand Plateau's laws if you're going to look at something like quantum foam dynamics. Some amazing chemistry and some amazing physics. And it just keeps going. Now, bubbles. We all love bubbles. My favourite application of the bubble, however, is in cake. Because we all love cake. So, this is a Jaffa cake. And for those of you who are not from this country, Jaffa cakes are the most delicious things you can buy. And they come in packets like this, which you rarely see are half empty. This is quite an unusual thing, actually. Because Jaffa cakes are as close as you can get to what's known as, or what I like to call, a binary object. You've come across, because Jaffa cakes don't usually have 2 states. A packet of Jaffa cakes, that is. You either have an unopened packet or an empty packet. And there's very rarely you encounter one in between. However, this is a rare binary sort of, quantum something, I don't know. Anyway, it's half a packet of Jaffa cakes. Because the Jaffa cake here's a Jaffa cake, lovely, lovely, lovely. And this is actually the hardest part of the talk for me, because I mustn't eat the Jaffa cake. Because I have one of these on, and if you eat when you've got one of these, and it's disgusting, okay? So you never ever eat with a microphone on. And also you find that then you've got little bits of Jaffa cake in your mouth. Top tip, okay? Don't eat on stage. So you mustn't eat the Jaffa cake. So no eating Jaffa cake, which is difficult, because they're very delicious. So the Jaffa cake is made of a piece of Genoese sponge. On top of that is a smashing orangey bit. And on top of that is chocolate. If you've never experienced a Jaffa cake, go out and buy one. You'd probably be able to buy one from a 7-Eleven, or I'm sure Cheltenham has Jaffa cakes galore. Anyway, the point is, a Jaffa cake is an application of bubbles in deliciousness. Solid. Because the foamy thing at the bottom that makes the delicious cake is, of course, made up of bubbles that are contained within an eggy matrix. Now, here is the question I put to you. Is, though, a Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? Because it looks like a biscuit. It actually, if you go into the supermarket, you buy it in the biscuit aisle. But it's not a biscuit. It's a cake. It's very definitely a cake. And the reason it's a cake is because first, how those bubbles are formed, and secondly, how they're contained. They're formed because, well, for most cakes, I've got not enough space. Oh, it's always the case. Hopeless. The bubbles are formed with a very simple reaction, which is this one here. You take bicarbonate of soda, boop, and you add, if you take an acid to a carbonate, very simple, you've all done this. Every school child has done this. You add this, maybe not in a wine glass, but you add it like that, and it froths up, whoopity-doo, okay? Which is fine and works very well. It's possibly too well, but I'll put that down. This is my favourite way of demonstrating these, and I spent a lot of time this afternoon doing this, because what I do is I take film canisters. This is an ordinary film canister. Okay. Now, if you've got an audience under the age of about 18, they don't have a clue what these are, which is actually quite a problem when you're doing a talk to a bunch of school kids. But anyway, so what you do is you put the lemon juice at the bottom, like that, about a centimetre of lemon juice. Then what you do is you take a piece of toilet paper, and you want just a single layer of toilet paper. So if you've got that stuff that's made with puppies and stuff, and is all pleated, that doesn't work. Okay, I've tried. And the greasy stuff, that's hopeless. And you put it on the top like that, okay? And then you get your bicarb and you pop that in, and you really have to try this. If you haven't done this yet at home, then do this, because this is a bit of an old favourite of mine. And you pop it in like that, and then nothing happens. Which is always a bit disappointing, because nothing's happened. The reaction hasn't been mixed, because obviously the two ingredients, the two reagents are separated. We've got to mix them together. That will create carbon dioxide. Here's some I did earlier. And, yeah. I didn't actually tell them I was going to do that. So yeah, it's an unstoppable reaction. Yeah, yeah, always, never be afraid to make a mess. Don't tell anyone you're going to make a mess. Just do it, as they say. It's always easier to seek forgiveness than permission. So, right, where were we? We were talking about Jaffa cakes. Okay, so you make bubbles inside, but what you don't actually use bicarbonate of soda. What normally people use is baking powder. Baking powder has in it 3 ingredients. The 3 ingredients are bicarbonate of soda, if I haven't got my specs on, rice flour, makes it flow better, and the other one is disodium diphosphate, which is basically a dry powdered acid. So when you add it, it acidifies the solution that you put it in, and then you mix it up. The bicarbonate of soda reacts with the acid and creates carbon dioxide bubbles and gives you that lift. Or at least that's the theory. The practice, I think, is actually completely different. Because actually, if you make a cake mixture, people who've made cake mixtures, they know it doesn't sort of froth up like that until you put it in the oven. And actually, I think what happens with baking powder is it's got nothing to do with the acidification. This is just my little theory, and I have tested this a little bit. I think it's got more to do with the temperature, because bicarbonate of soda breaks down spontaneously at 50 degrees. At 60 degrees, the albumin, the ovalbumin that is in the egg that sets and makes the spongy mixture, sets at 60 degrees. So at 50 degrees, up it goes, 60 degrees, sets. And you've got your sponge. Right, Jaffa cakes. It is actually quite important whether it's a biscuit or a cake. This is a little bit of history. In 1991, there was a VAT tribunal. So VAT, value-added tax, it's our sales tax, for those of you who aren't aware. And McVitie's, who make these, went to the VAT man and said, these are cakes, they are not biscuits. And the VAT man said, well, they awfully look like biscuits. And the thing is, if a biscuit is coated in chocolate, it is not considered an essential item, and therefore they add VAT to it, and the government gets an extra 20%. If it is a cake, you can cover it in anything you want, and it is considered essential to life. And therefore, there is no VAT on it. So what McVitie's did is they used the proof of cakeness. Cakery. In cakedness. What they did was they made really big ones, okay? So they looked like cakes, and then they left them out. Because the thing is, what makes the way you can tell, if you're not sure, like, is a flapjack a cake or a biscuit? What you do is you leave it out on the side, which, admittedly, for a Jaffa cake is an extremely difficult thing to do. because you have to leave it for a good couple of days. If it gets hard, it's a cake. Because the reason why it's soft and spongy and delicious is because of all the liquid that's trapped in the eggy matrix that's holding the bubbles together. If it goes soft, it's a biscuit, because biscuits are held together with sugar. And gradually water from the atmosphere, especially on humid days like this, is absorbed by that water crystalline matrix, and it goes soft. Because when you take a biscuit out, it's all soft, isn't it? And it goes soft. So cakes dry, biscuits don't. No, mustn't eat the biscuits. Right. Now, there is another ingredient, actually, that comes from the cake and ooh, it's a good thing I'm not using these anymore. I shall sit in my room tonight and eat them all. No, there's something that comes from the culinary sort of tradition of making cakes and things like that. As another ingredient, it's called a humectant. And you find humectants in most manufactured cakes products. And a humectant, it can be something as simple as glycerol. Okay, so glycerol is stuff you can buy in supermarkets and put it in icing and stuff like that. And the job of glycerol is to hang on to the water. It holds on to water, and that's what a humectant does. It holds on to the water, stops it evaporating, and that helps keep the sponge soft and delicious and stops it drying out. But the thing is, you add humectants to bubble mixture. This bubble mixture has actually got 3 ingredients. There's water, there's soap, and then there's a humectant as well. Now, in this particular instance, the humectant is a peculiarly delightful one, which, it's a veterinary lubricant. No, I kid you not. And just don't think what you have, haven't you? Yes, that is what veterinary lubricants are used for. And this is what is in here, which always gives me a certain titillation. And what it does is it stops the bubbles from evaporating so much. And this is really important because the reason why bubbles burst, well, actually, if you blow bubbles with any audience except for an extremely mature grown-up audience like you lot, you will find the reason why bubbles burst is because small children poke their fingers in them. That is actually why most bubbles burst. But if you can hang on to a bubble for long enough, it will still burst. And the reason it bursts is because it dries out. There's only about 10 molecules thickness of water inside that bubble sandwich. And if those 10 molecule thick of water evaporate, well, then you don't have a sandwich. You just have 2 layers of soap. And where the layers of soap meet, they join together and they form a little hole. And because of Plateau's laws, which go on to explain, because it's trying to create the minimum surface area, that hole is stretched open by surface tension, and just the whole bubble rips open, okay? Now, there was a gentleman who went by the incredibly unlikely name of Eiffel Plasterer. You laugh, but he was American, and he was this incredible guy. He was around in the 1970s and 60s. It's very difficult to find out any information about him, but a very eccentric man. He was this sort of bizarre little short guy with crazy hair and a moustache and this big... He was really thin, okay? So I'm not doing that one. I'm not going there at all. Anyway, so what he did is he was one of the very first bubble... I like to call them bubbleologists. I'm not quite sure how you spell that. But what he would do is he was one of the first people to take bubbles, and rather than just there used to be a tradition within places like Vegas of making bubble shows, and there'd be people in Vegas, but he used to make them, and he would create the most astonishing things with bubbles. And with his special bubble technology, just getting the sign, which means that the judges are done. Yeah, she's giving me the thumb. Look at that. This was all supposed to be seamless, but I hate that sort of stuff. So I always like to let you in behind the scenes. So they're like, oh, we're panicking. Oh, how are we going to do this? And we can do this, and you'll do that, and it'll be all very so confusing. Whatever. I'll just do my thing. They do theirs. Anyway, so Eiffel Plasterer came up with this amazing bubble mixture. And the thing about bubble mixture, if you get the right humectant in, they don't evaporate. They last longer. If you can do that, that means you can do wonderful things. Now, I tried to break the record for the world's largest indoor bubble using this, and we didn't quite get there. So I thought we'd give it a go. This is the difficult bit. Right, in it goes. So, I hope you've had a great time. I hope you've all voted as well. I haven't been watching what's been going on. And hopefully the internet's all worked and everything, and everything's been wonderful. So here you go. Do come and see me in one of my other shows. I've got loads of stuff going on. Just look for me in the programme. You've been a lovely audience. This is a very big bubble. Thank you very much.
That was fabulous. It is one thing to try and do a performance. It is another thing to try and do it up against the clock. It is a third thing to do it not having an indefinite time to do it. And it is a fourth thing to do it when it's nearly 11 o'clock at night. So can we please, again, give a bubbly hubbub of applause for Marty Jopson. And I should tell you that Marty's really heavy show is on Saturday at noon. Tricks of the Body is 10 a.m. on Sunday. And then also at 8:30 on Saturday night, he's taking part with, Sunday night, the Over Ambitious Demo Challenge, which is a wonderful show as well. I'll also tell you that Marty Jopson is an anagram of not Major Spy, but that may not be relevant. Right, as you may have gathered, they are back. So can we please welcome them back, our judges. Please come on back. Professors Kathy Willis and Mark Lithgow, Nadia Al-Awadi, and first our chair, Robert Llewellyn. Now, you can see they've got a collectively decisive look on their faces. Well, except Mark, but he can't help that. So to add to the tension, both psychologically and in terms of the load-bearing capacity for this stage, can we get all 12 Famelab finalists back up here as well, please? Last year there were only 9, this year there are 12. So we are pushing things to the limits. So I hope that as well as the duration of the event being increased, the entertainment has been increased, even if the odds of imminent disappointment are increased as well. You can't have somebody squeezed off the end, come on. Squeeze up there, you know each other well. And finally, can we get the 3 people up here with the rewarding task of presenting the prizes? Louise Emerson from Cheltenham Festivals, Rebecca Hughes from the British Council, and His Highness Bob Fenton from Famelab sponsors EDF. Right, Louise, as you can see, has a golden envelope in her hand, and we're going to start with the one prize that we can all agree is democratic, deserved, and a crowd pleaser. That is our audience vote winner. So I'm going to announce it. I'm going to hand you over to the person. They're going to get, by the way, I should say, a plaque and books galore, but the books galore are off stage. So with the details, CEO of Cheltenham Festivals, and my warm-up act for tonight, Louise Emerson.
So the audience vote winner is Konstantinos Timinis.
Oh.
Cyprus.
Oh, congratulations. Well done. Right, so they'll get books. There's books to come later as well. Fine, now, much the same prize awaits our 2 joint runners-up, but this is where we move from democracy to what we hope is sophocracy and the wise decision of our 4 judges. Robert, we set you an impossible task. Did you manage to mess it up?
We messed it up, and we had it was extremely tense. It was extremely tense.
We want a bit about the tension before we get to the names, and the difficulty.
It was because it's just anyway. I can't even talk about it. It was that tense. I can't even express it.
Can I change my mind?
Are you going to change your mind?
Good. What a good.
Have we ever done that before?
Okay. I mean, anybody else got any comments? Just general comments. I'm going to give the game away, but anything about you liked, you hated, you loved? Don't mention music.
It was really hard. It was a really, really difficult decision to make. It really was. Everybody was so good. You guys did really, really well today.
Yeah. Extraordinary. Okay. It is unfortunately a bit of a long evening, so this is where we move from the kind of warm and fuzzy, in a way, you're all winners, to the rather harder and more practical, but in a real way, only one of you plus 2 runners-up is.
So do you want the two runners-up?
The 2 joint runners-up.
The 2 joint runners-up, we've decided.
And then can we just warn you that we'll then get Rebecca Hughes, who is Director of Education at the British Council, will give them there, and she's got a double whammy there of plaques for them.
The 2 runners-up are Alba Aguillon and Ada Rafat.
Hey! Right, so finally, it is the final verdict. And Robert, before you announce it, I should tell you that Bob Fenton, Head of Communications, EDF, and Famelab sponsors, and also suppliers of, very kindly, the GoPro Hero Black Rugged camera with additional rear screen attachment. Now is that time to say who gets it. Robert, they're all pro heroes, but who gets to be the GoPro hero?
We have decided that the winner is Abhi Veera Kumarasivam.
Hey! Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'll let you bask in the applause for a bit here.
I think all of you deserve it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So congratulations on not just being our Famelab champion, but a champion of champions. How's that sinking in?
No words can express.
No. This is a prize for communication. I don't know if you've explained that part of it.
I'm just grateful to the opportunities that the Malaysian government and the British Council had afforded me here, and I must say that I'm extremely humbled, and I don't think I deserve. With all the various different competitors from everywhere, they've shown there, and they've really helped me out, and I was so nervous, and I wouldn't have been able to stand up here and confidently deliver if it wasn't for all of them. So I think all of us deserve a good applause, and I thank you everyone.
Now he's got the words, right, yeah.
And I guess I need to thank my family and my wife, who's still awake and probably voting.
Probably still voting. Well, I think you can tell her to stop. So she's done the job. She can stop now, I think.
Thank you.
You also want to thank the judges, I think, because it's a brave decision to pick the guy with the hardest name. I mean, they could have easily bottled that one, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, I won't keep you any longer, but we'll do some more congratulations at the end. There's a couple of other people to thank as well. And I'm sorry to the people who didn't win. Now you know how it feels to be an England fan in a couple of weeks' time when we lose the penalty shootout in the round of 16. There will be tears and beers almost imminently, so I will not prolong the goodbyes, but there's a couple of people I need to thank. Obviously, we want to thank not just the 12 on this stage, but all 27 who took part in the Tremi-finals. You didn't get to see them all, some of you, but they were all absolutely Famelabulous. I also want to send out an intense gamma-ray burst of gratitude to Cheltenham Festivals, to the British Council for conceiving, nurturing and raising Famelab from a single-cell idea to the globe-spanning event we've all been lucky enough to be part of tonight. Particularly want to thank Tim Slingsby from British Council, who sadly will be leaving the British Council soon. The Famelab manager, Helen Kirkman, wherever she may be. And the ghost in the machine who couldn't be with us tonight, but I know is watching from her own party in Sofia, Lubov Kostova, the head of Famelab Bulgaria. I think it's the first time she's ever not made the finals. Right, huge thanks also to our sponsors, EDF, for supporting us and providing the winner of the prize. To all our national and international partners, that is it. I hope you've had as much fun as I did. Sorry it's gone a little bit longer, but we gave you 33% more Famelab this year. Congratulations one more time to all our finalists. Thanks to our judges, and big thanks to our winner, Abdi. Oh, come on. That's it. No fireworks this year. That's it.